TB Shore's back. Sorry about that last video cutting off so abruptly. I received a phone call and I record on my phone, so it interrupted the video and I couldn't pick it back up. So I'm just going to start where I left off. I was talking about how the World Trade Center site sits on what is known as Liberty Street and Church Street. What the Lord had showed me with this was how that liberty represents our freedom. Okay? It's a condition of being free from confinement, servitude, and forced labor. And Church Street, if we look at church, of course, the obvious, it's the Lord's house. But more importantly, the whole body professing Christ is the church. And it's about how the seat of Satan, which is the World Trade Center complex, sits on liberty and church. It's about controlling. This is symbolic and mimicking and mocking, okay? It's symbolic. Liberty is symbolic of our freedom. Church Street is symbolic of our faith. And the World Trade Center complex sitting on these streets is symbolic and mockery, as we see that it's about controlling these things because it sits on them. And it is the seat of Satan, and it is the headquarters of Satan. And this is kind of like a symbol to Satan that makes him feel that he is exalting himself, okay? I think that's all I wanted to point out on this page. We already talked about the 1776. Let me set this aside. I wanted to go back to this page. Of course, we looked at this already, about the reclaimed land and how that's about Satan creating land, so to speak. But the thing I want to go back and point out, we touched on the other meaning of landfill. And what I want to show you with that is this. Let me see if I can get back where I need to be. Bear with me. Let's see, we looked at this. We're going to scroll down to... Okay, here we see when the destruction of 9/11 took place. And then we go on down and we see about the new buildings. We'll get into that later because that takes us to the new events with Oculus and what all that represents. But what I want to look at right now is this. Cleanup. Okay? Cleanup from 9/11. Now, this is a major thing, I feel, in Satan's scheme of things. How he was trying to create betrayal and sacrifice in what he did here when he destroyed the first towers and all that was within the World Trade Center complex. See, he had created that. We saw how he had took reclaimed land and built land and built upon that, okay? So he was claiming that as his creation. And then whenever he sacrificed his creation, do you understand what I'm saying here? He was mimicking the sacrifice of Christ with this because it had to be his creation, had to be a part of him, what he felt was a part of him. And the betrayal is all about the lives that were sacrificed that day. This was something that, if truth be known, and as far as this world goes, you'd have to dig and still wonder what's truth. But I know I'm going to refer back to the vision that my mother had before she died. about 2 weeks before the World Trade Center, or the 9/11 attacks and the trade centers fell. I told you in a previous video, she had a vision of 2 tall buildings that fell and a lot of people died. But what I didn't tell you, and I'm going to bring it out now, is that she did not see planes fly into the buildings. You got to remember, she was seeing a vision from God. So the vision from God would not be about the lie that was behind it. The vision from God would have the truth. And what my mother told me was they fell from explosions. She said there were explosions. And 2 tall buildings fell. Okay? That's what she saw in this vision the Lord gave her. She said there are going to be explosions. 2 tall buildings are going to fall and a lot of people are going to die. And it will bring war in a desert land where men wear rags on their heads. That's what she told me. And it was not planes that she saw, it was explosions. And having said that, I feel that backs up what I'm saying here about sacrifice. Because explosions of the nature that I'm thinking of would have to be something that was preset, pre-planned. Okay. Having said that, we need to look at, when we're looking at this being a thing of sacrifice that Satan is wanting to proclaim with this act, we have to look at how what I had said before, it was something he had created and he sacrificed it. There was innocent life lost there. And by innocent, I mean that they had no idea what was coming, and they lost their life for nothing of their own cause. They had not done anything to bring this about, makes them innocent, okay? The next thing I want to point out is what happened with the cleanup, okay? This, I think, says a lot about whether or not we can see this as a sacrifice. The first thing I want to point out is this right here. It's called Fresh Kills Landfill. This is where it says the debris of 9/11 was transported from the World Trade Center to Fresh Kill Landfill on Staten Island. Okay, that's still within Satan's burrows, in one of his strongholds. We talked about that in another video. Okay, when we look deeper at this Fresh Kills landfill, this is what we find. We find, let me see here, that the Fresh Kills landfill was a landfill covering 2,200 square acres in New York City, borough of Staten Island in the United States. Let's see. The next thing I wanted to point out, let me see, right here it is, right here. It says, it's talking about the aftermath of 9/11. It says that beginning right here, it says a memorial is being built to honor those who were not able to be identified from the debris. The remaining debris was buried in a 40-acre portion of the landfill. It is highly likely that this debris still contained fragmentary human remains. Now, I don't take I don't take any joy in pointing that out, but I need to point it out, okay? The reason being is because here, that alone made this land become what I've got wrote here, okay? It became desolate land, land of destruction, land of death. It became the field of blood. Field is land, and blood is about death, okay? Kill is about the shedding of blood. So this became a desolate land, a field of blood. If you look in Matthew 27, 7 through 8, you'll see reference to this and how this ties back to the betrayal that I was talking about. Satan had to have a betrayal and he had to have a sacrifice. He betrayed, the betrayal here was about the American people being betrayed and what actually happened here. It was all about Satan. People who have spiritual eyes to see will understand what I'm saying here. It was all about Satan and his plan to exalt himself above God. Okay. He had to have this sacrifice. He had to bring about his version, his mimicking of the sacrifice of the innocent and the betrayal. Okay? And like I said, the betrayal was all about the American people being betrayed in the lie that took place here. The sacrifice is about the deaths of those innocent people who had not done anything to deserve their life being taken. Satan confirms that this was a sacrifice, and I do think he had to proclaim it as that for it to mean what it needs to mean in the scheme of things. But I want to point out some things here. The Lord led me to look up fresh. Fresh means acceptable and highly approved by someone, okay? Kill means to put to death. So here we're looking at fresh is something that's acceptable and approved. And we want to see if it fits the definition of a sacrifice. So the Lord had me to look up sacrifice. Sacrifice meaning is killing with intention of pleasing a deity. Killing with intention of pleasing a deity. The Lord had me to focus in on this word right here, pleasing. Pleasing is from a Latin word, placer. And guess what the meaning of pleasing in Latin is? Acceptable and approved, which is what fresh is, acceptable and approved. So these were acceptable and approved deaths, okay, to please a deity, okay? I hope you can see what I'm trying to say with that, because the Lord made it very clear to me. And I wanted to point this out because I think that was something Satan had to do with this landfill, which I might point out is going to have a memorial. I think I mentioned that when I read this a while ago. And the memorial is all about the fact that they know they put human remains in that fresh kills landfill. And it takes us all back to the same conclusion. It was acceptable and approved. Fresh is acceptable and approved. Acceptable and approved deaths to please a deity, to be accepted and approved by a deity. I hope you get what I'm saying there, because it's very profound. Something we really need to understand is what Satan is trying to hide in plain sight, I guess is the best way to put that. All right, I'm going to cut this off here, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.